So I'm a pretty different musician in that I'm actually very left brain. I love order, I love structure, which is, can be a good thing, but like most musicians you find are very like free-spirited and artistic, and there are times when I wish I was more that way. I feel like my art would probably benefit if I was wired a little bit more that way. But I'm not, the way God made me, I'm a little bit more on the other side, very logical. And so when I started music out, I kind of saw it through that lens of like, is this logical? Could I actually lead to the life that I'm hoping to live and have a family and a wife and support them through music? And at first that seemed uh illogical. It seemed very hard to do. It seemed like betting on myself would be an unwise thing to do. And so, I kind of always have approached music in that mindset of like, if I can surround this with some semblance of security, having different assets and things that create value to what I'm doing and my house and everything, um, then I'm kind of hedging my bet, right? Like I can kind of make this to where all of a sudden it goes from illogical to like, oh, this actually makes sense. Maybe I could dive into this. And so I remember when I started music in college, and I made an independent CD, and I spent every dime I had to make a 6-song EP. And I got home, and my dad was listening to it, and my dad was not he was not like anti-music. But he just was not very like, he didn't know. He's like, I don't know about this whole music thing. And so I played the 6 songs for him, and he goes, the only thing that I don't like is that it's only 6 songs.
Mm.
And I said, well, I'm glad you like it, but that was every dime I had. Like I spent all my money on this studio experience. And my dad was like super, he goes, well, what if I helped you? What if I like helped you record the rest of this album? And and if you can pay it back one day, fantastic. And if not, that's okay.
Aw.
Um, it was super sweet. It was like a big pivotal moment for me to realize like my dad believed in it enough that he thought I should actually try this. And I think I had that like, I don't want to disappoint my dad. I don't want to be the like struggling musician that like, is living with them, in my 30s or something like that. So the fact that he was willing to kind of bet on me gave me some confidence to try it. So I went back, I recorded 5 more songs, and I came back to school as a sophomore. And this was way back when people actually bought CDs. And I remember like I wanted to purchase 500 copies of the CD because I figured that would be more than enough. Um, but it was one of those things where like if you purchase 1,000, it's like basically the same price because of all the setup fees. So I did 1,000, and I was like, I don't know, I'll just make furniture out of the rest of the CDs. I'll make a coffee table or something. And to my surprise, like I was able to go around campus and like play little shows, and people would be like, "Hey, you're the guy with the CD, right?" And I would always put like 10 in my backpack, and I'd go sell them on campus and all this stuff, and just kind of like learning how to hustle through that, if you will. And so it was like I did that for the rest of my college experience. And by the time I graduated, I remember I was still like in that mindset of like, I don't know if this is logical. Like, yes, I've kind of figured out how to make some money doing this, but I don't know if this is very logical. And so it was again my dad who was like, why don't you try and do music full time? And you've got a safety net. Like, we'll take care of you. We're not going to let you go hungry. And that was again like kind of the push I needed to realize like, okay, it's not just me. If my dad is saying that this could make sense, maybe there's actually something there. So I dove in as an independent artist, and I did that for 3 years full time. And I was very fortunate that I didn't have to like go take advantage of my parents' safety net. I didn't have to like crash on their couch or anything. I was able to kind of start doing all the roles. I was my own manager. I was my own booking agent. I was my own I had some guys that would help me. Like we became a band for a little while. We just travel around and we would just kind of hustle through all those things and then eventually when it got to where it was like, man, I cannot manage this anymore and so into the music like I should, that's when I actually hired an actual manager and some things started, like the ball was rolling at that point, which was fun. I went from very regionally. I would always play like Florida. I was from Florida, so I'd play like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and then like come home, and then Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and then come home. And then suddenly, when I got a manager and I started getting a song on the radio, I started getting opportunities to play like outside of those three states and started getting opportunities to go on tours and stuff like that. So that was always really fun. But I always, that whole time, had this lens that I viewed music through, which was that like, this has to make sense. It has to be logical. And for me, I just knew like, I don't think I want to be out hustling on the road when I'm 50 years old. Maybe, but it doesn't, like, that doesn't sound, when you're in your 20s, like it's hard to imagine that, right? So I always knew that I needed to like kind of surround myself with kind of hedge my bet on this music thing, right? And so very early on, my wife and I found some ways to do that. And I absolutely do not think there's one way to do it. Um, I think there's multiple ways to do it, but the thing I have learned is that there's a few things that I always encourage kind of starting up artists with. One is if you have other work, specifically in 9 to 5, but any other work, realize the power in that. Because I think so many artists think that the only goal is to like get to where I can quit this 9 to 5, right? Like that's the one track mind of like, man, the second I can quit my 9 to 5 and just do music, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I think so many people forget to see the power in their 9 to 5 or in their other work. And the reason for that is, the reason I say that is because I've seen a lot of artists have to compromise their art and compromise their calling. Suddenly, if you take that leap really early to go into music full time, you kind of have to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. And suddenly you might be in venues where you're like, how did I end up here? This is not this is not the kind of venue I wanted to play. Or you might be writing songs where you're like, well, I need something to work on radio because that's the only way I got to pay bills, right? Like, so I need a radio song. Instead of being really true to yourself and your art and saying, no, this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm gifted at. The 9 to 5 actually gives you a lot of power to patiently pursue your calling and stay in that lane. So I always encourage people, like, don't view that as like the thing you got to get out of. View it as like a power that allows you to do the music thing the way you've been called to do it, where you've been called to do it, and how you've been called to do it. And not have to like sell your soul to just make your rent every month, right? So there's a lot of power in working outside of music that will actually make your music better and in the long run a better journey. And then the other thing is, there's two more things actually. One of them is finding ways to make yourself more valuable. Um, and so I don't know exactly what that might mean for different cases, but for me, I used to think like, oh man, like there's this mentor that can help me, but ooh, it's $500 a month, blah, blah, blah. I used to see that as like an expense that I was afraid of. And now I just think like, man, if I can become like 1% better, $500 a month is like nothing, right? Like if this person can show me how to like run my merchandise better and up my sales by a few $100s every single time I play, that expense is nothing, right? And so now I'm in a season where like we are really digging. Like one of my wife and I's big vision for this year is to just get better. I have a mentorship that I'm doing for our business that we run, the gym. I have a personal business mentor who's like really godly guy and views it through the lens of God and family first. Um, but he's just guiding me on some things. Phil has been a mentor for me, just, you know, spiritually and just in like how I interact with my family. My wife has a mentor now that's helping her with homeschooling and some of the things that she's been diving into lately. And so we, you know, the the common thing is like any little money you have, throw it in like the, you know, the 401k or save it and everything. And I would say like when you're young, that's the best time to like actually make yourself more valuable. There's a guy named Alex Hormozy. Has anyone heard of Alex Hormozy at all?
He's entertaining.
Okay.
About it. He's great. Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, he has a thing instead of the S&P 500, you should be worried about the S&Me 500 and like any money when you're young rather than like putting it in like a savings or a 401k or whatever, like put it in yourself. Make yourself more valuable. Develop a skill that becomes, you know, and as a musician, maybe that's lessons, maybe that's mentors, maybe that's production for your show, whatever it is. Like how do you use your money to make yourself more valuable?
Moving to Nashville.
Exactly. Let's go. Um, that's a great way. And then the third thing is once you start to feel like you're actually providing good value and becoming more valuable, is just really focus on assets, right? Like, so my wife and I early on were able to purchase not only the house we lived in, but we lived way below our means so that we could purchase another rental home as well. And we kind of got that bug. And real estate's not the only way, but it's a great way. And I know it might sound crazy right now to think about real estate because everything's so expensive and interest rates are up here. But like there are ways where you can just think through like, how do I live in a way that's under my means, make sacrifices so that I can pour that into assets that actually give us money back. Us doing that in our 20s and even like younger 30s, I'm 40 now, I'm a really old man. Us doing that in the first 10 years of our marriage, like living dirt cheap, even when we didn't have to, but pouring that into things that actually provide money has given us so much freedom. And again, not just freedom to say like, oh, I can pay my bills, but like freedom with my music to say like, oh, this is the kind of gig I want to do, even though it doesn't pay hardly anything. This is what I feel called to do. This is the music I feel called to make. You know, the last album I put out, not once did I ask the question, what's going to work? Like, what's going to work on radio? And that was so freeing to me to be like, all right, what do I want to make? Like, God, what do you want me to make? And it was commercially terrible. It did not, it did not sell a lot of copies, but I'm so proud of how it turned out. And I'm so proud, like, I'm grateful that that didn't have to be my only measure of success for it because of some of those things. So um, that's just a little bit. You asked about Live Fit turning into Fit Factory. So I'll share a little bit of that. So I had the music passion. My wife had the fitness passion. She started teaching like outdoor boot camp classes at Centennial Park, three mornings a week. I'm pretty sure we needed a license for that and we didn't have it. But she would just meet out there at the park and with friends. She just walked into a bookshelf, you guys. Sorry, we got
It's the panic room.
Oh yeah,
bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
It's pretty crazy.
Like she just walked into a bookshelf. So she started doing that and did such a good job of loving people and training people. But my wife hates business. Like when I started realizing like, man, there's 15 people coming, but only 6 of them are actually paid up. Like it just, she just was like, I love the training. I love the people. I hate the business. So I was able to come alongside her and show her some of the value in what she was doing, why it was worth charging, actually charging these people and actually charging them more than she was charging, and kind of take some of that stuff off her plate in a way that like allowed her to really lean into her giftings and me lean into mine. So after a few years of doing that, we realized we had enough of the ball was rolling enough to actually look into leasing a space. And so we started Fit Factory 9 years ago now, which is wild to think about. And in the very early years, it was very much us. Like it was Libby was teaching all the classes, I was doing all the things outside of that. And now we have a great team. So I'm actually able to view our business almost more like an asset, right? Like it's not work for me. It does require some work, but like it's something that like I can put a handful of hours into and generate a return. So it's like it's yet another asset, real estate, the business, just pouring into ourselves, kind of all three legs of that. So we are, I guess I would say, a story of like someone whose music made it enough to like get paid from it, which I'm super grateful for. But I never had like a string of hits. I never had like a, I, I've never been able to charge a crazy exorbitant amount to come play a show, and that's all relative. But like, but we were able to take what we did get, and through those things, through investing in ourselves, through investing in assets, and through pouring into our business, get to where we have three kiddos, get to live in Franklin, and not absolutely stress over our bills, which is a really fun place to be. But so that's kind of my story, and everybody's story is different. So I don't know if that Phil or anyone else, if that generates any questions or anything.
I would love to hear just kind of, because I feel like we're similar in some ways in how we tackle art. Can you just talk to me a little bit about things that you did when it comes to running your music business like a business? Because I feel like that I always love to pick up on stuff.
For sure. So very early on, you can gain, I quickly realized like early on, like I need to say yes to everything that comes my way, because even if I'm not gaining anything financially, I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. I'm learning how to interact with a crowd. I'm learning what works at my merchandise table and what doesn't. So I played every chance I got, because it was always either going to make me money or make me better. Those were the two things, right? And so some of the ways that like I think I was able to approach it like a business, on so a few things. One is, I always knew that I was the CEO of what was going on. I think a lot of artists feel like, well, that's not my lane. So I need management. I need these outside voices to come run all the business stuff for me. And that can be helpful in some ways, but it can really be detrimental when artists just like let all these outside voices take over all the business stuff. So I always knew like, I don't know how many like artist manager interactions you've had, but so many of them feel like the manager's the boss and the artist is the employee. And the truth, it's the other way around, right? Like you are your manager's boss if you have a manager, right? Are you laughing because that like hits home or what? Like,
Oh, you have no idea, my friend.
like you have to remember that you're the boss at the end of the day. And if you're going to be a boss, you got to be a good one, right? And so that always led to some like really tough but respectful conversations between my manager and I, where he was like, "Are you going to let me manage you or not?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, but I do need to be the boss of this business, right?" So that was one way. Another way that really helped me was just the simple napkin math of merchandise and shows. I got to tour with a band, and I had negotiated. This is back when people bought CDs. So 10 years ago or so. I had negotiated my record deal. I was able to buy my CDs for about $2 a piece, and we were selling them for 10. And the band that I was opening for, I like something came up, and I was like, "So what's your buyback on these?" And they didn't even know. And so then the next week we came to the tour, and the guy Mike, he goes, man, I looked at it. We're paying $9 plus shipping to get these CDs in. And I was like, okay, first off, that's terrible. Second off, plus shipping. Like, what is, how much does it cost to ship the box of CDs? He's like, well, they ship them to us, and then typically we ship them to a venue, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, so let's do some math. We did some math. They were paying about $13 a CD, and they were selling them for 10. Right? That doesn't, it just doesn't work, right? So those like simple things of like the napkin math of like making sure like the profit margin is there on merchandise items. The You calculate your expenses well as far as like when you get a show offer and stuff like that. What's it actually going to cost to get there? What's the hotel actually going to cost? All these things. I used to have a really detailed spreadsheet, and I say used to, I'll explain why. I used to have a really detailed spreadsheet that every show I did, I could put in some information, and it calculated how much my merchandise cost me, what the shipping costs were, what I got paid for the show, what my travel expenses were, what my travel compensation was, all those things. And I knew at the end of the night, literally like my profit to the penny for that night. And that was a really valuable thing. And it was also a really terrible thing. It was terrible because I let it start dictating how I felt about the night. And I had to stop doing it. I had to start doing it more like monthly, because I would have what I felt like was an amazing show, like so fun. I felt God, God was just moving in that room, and it was a blast. I had great conversations, and the crowd was really in it. And I would be on like this high, and then I would get to my spreadsheet and be like, and it was terrible. So I had to start doing that more like monthly rather than like per show, just to kind of level myself out. But all that to say, just the napkin math of making sure your business actually makes sense. You'd never hear of like a person open up a small business and like them be like, yeah, I don't really know what our goods cost. I don't really know what we pay our employees. I don't really know all this stuff. And yet musicians kind of forget that they're the CEO of a very small business, or sometimes a big business too. Yeah, what's up?
And the default mistake that some have made, some meaning myself, big mistake, is having managers, having a business manager, and not keeping track of their expenditures and their actually overspending, not telling me how much things are costing, saying, yeah, we booked the photo shoot, and me not asking how much we're spending on that shoot, because this is back to that thing when self-managing is actually clutch. Them paying thousands of dollars for a photo shoot when I'm not making any money, when I could have got somebody for $300 to shoot the same quality photos, not asking the question, not being accountable for. I mean, it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I have absolutely been there. The I think a lot of artists forget that every dime the label spends is your money. It is. And so one extreme example I had, my label has like the label I used to be on has a like a private retreat center outside of Seattle. And they did this retreat for radio people, and they wanted to bring some artists, and then they were flying all the radio people into Seattle and then private plane to get to the property. And so they didn't really mention to the artists, but I dug in. I was like, so is this a recoupable expense, and how much is it costing? And long story short, is about $25,000 that they were covering, that ultimately is my money. And I was like, so I need to talk to somebody about this, because is there a more efficient way to do this and a more effective way to do it? And we were able to work something out. But that's $25,000 that I would have had to recoup. So it's my money. I just didn't have it yet. that they were spending on a private plane on this thing. Meals, management expense, those like the photographer is a great example. When I was indie, I would hire somebody for $500, get a really killer photo shoot because I found like a young and hungry photographer that just wanted to like, build their brand. And all of a sudden I'm with a label and we're doing a $4,000 photo shoot and it's marginally better, right? Like, and so it's, yeah, again, realizing that you don't just accidentally run this well. You have to have that I own this business mindset.
Can I ask you a question? Which I feel weird being so far away, so.
You're good. Come on closer.
Yeah, there, that's better. Hey.
Hey.
So I left my job last April. I was like full-time ministry at a church. And I had like this momentum. I had like a hot streak or whatever. I had gotten this special with K-Love. And I'm thinking like after this, I'm just gonna get signed. And like I thought it was like the end all be all. And I left my job and I kind of had whiplash, both from like, oh, this wasn't the end all be all. I had a couple of meetings with agents, didn't get signed. So, and the more I learn about the business side of being an artist, it freaks me out. I'm not good at numbers. I'm not good at business. Like before I did this, I was working with kids. Like I don't have that bend, that side that you have, that left brain.
Sure.
So I was disillusioned by that. And also, like, I went in and I am trying to maintain such a pure heart and motive for why I'm doing this. But I'm being discouraged by like the industry people I talk to. And I go in thinking like, oh, this is a Christian branch or this is a Christian executive. And then like, they're making me feel uncomfortable or they say things that they want me to change this or that. And like, I don't know, just like, I'm having a little bit of a, I guess, a one of many to be crises of like, it doesn't actually feel like this is serving the Lord. If it's more business minded, I'm not good at the business. Should I just throw in the towel? Is this all a scam? Are there any real Christians who are in the Christian industry? And I know like my experience has been so small so far. And hopefully I'll have more experiences, but just like, what would you say, or how would you encourage me in the fact that I'm not great at business? And just like, I guess what to expect continuing in the Christian realm of like others that I will experience and be working with.
Sure. Good questions. Let me break that down a little bit. So, what would I say when you say that's not a gifting you have? This might sound very straightforward, but work on it. Don't accept the fact that, well, I'm not good at this and I'm never going to be, because I don't think that serves us well in any area of life, right? Like, so I think that you can acknowledge like this is a weakness, and you need to work on that weakness. And also knowing it's a weakness will help you as you surround yourself with people that hopefully can see your heart in it and work with you on this. You're gonna have to be super intentional and careful if you work with. Are you with a manager anymore, or was that just in the past?
I have a like working manager who is essentially wearing all hats right now, booking agent, management, and I think for a cut of the gigs that I do get. So
do they understand like your heart well? Do you feel like there's some good collaboration there?
yes.
Okay.
I trust her. She's been a new addition. So it's like a brand new relationship and I'm trying to figure out the dynamic there. But she does have some of the business skills that I don't, which is kind of what made me feel comfortable hitching my wagon to hers. And she has the whole like, she can sell me better than I can sell myself, which is another thing I need to work on. Like I'm just not great at promoting myself, and that's another, area of growth, shall we say. Just in like pride versus business versus like the humble heart. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of hats to wear. I'm learning,
Right.
not just about.
It, it- okay, so just practically speaking, here's one way to view this. What's your name? Sorry.
I'm Carrie Murphy.
Carrie?
Yeah.
Okay. If I said, Carrie, I want you to work on this for the rest of 2024 and like study this, and it's a weakness now, but by the end of the year it could be a strength. And if you do that, I'll give you $1 million.
Mm.
$1 million. Like, what would you say? You wouldn't just be like, well, I'm just not good at this. You'd be like, I gotta find a way. Like, I gotta find a way.
Sure.
And so the truth is, if God ever chooses to like expand your music and expand your business through music, like you are talking about the difference in that kind of money over the course of a 10, 15, 20-year career, by you learning some of these skills. So I want to show you, like, I say that to just say like, it might seem hard, but it's super, super valuable. And if you see the kind of difference that's on the line, I think you'll really maybe be energized to be like, I really do need to work on this, even though it's a weakness. So A, that's what I would say. B, as far as like the Christian industry, is it heartless and all money driven? Trick question. um, you know, I this this goes way beyond music, right? Like, what's anyone's motivation to try and make money and to try and make maybe a lot of money, right? And I would love to tell you, like, I want to make as much money as I possibly am gifted to do so that I can do really cool things for the Lord and my family. Um, I I really, I mean, that's something I constantly have to check myself on. Am I trying to grow my net worth because it makes me feel good, more secure, whatever? Or ultimately it's like the truth is, and the thing that I come back to is I want to do really cool things for the Lord. I want to do really cool things with my family. I want to be a family on mission that like we can do really awesome things for the Lord without having to worry about the finances. We can be wildly generous, right? Like we can give gifts that would just blow people's mind because of some of the ways that we've been there. So all that to say, I I know my own heart in that is a constant tug of war. And so I would never want to judge somebody else's heart in that. I know artists that have a lot of money. I know artists that have very, very little money. And I don't know where they are with it, but I don't think there's anything, I don't think that you can see somebody trying to really make a lot of money at this and say, that's bad, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know their heart. And maybe their heart's where mine wants to be, in that place of like, let's live radically generous and do some really awesome things. So I have to kind of step away and just be like, yes, that record label or that artist or whatever seems to want to make a lot of money, but I don't know why. Maybe it's for the most pure reasons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, I like what you said earlier about, like, you said a word that to me meant a lot, and you said napkin, like you said, like napkin, and when Carrie was asking about, like, well, I'm not good at this, to me, that said, it's really at the core, very simple, so like, if you have a show coming up, to me, that's like, okay, I'm gonna have people go there to buy tickets. And man, if I had something to sell, that'd be great. And then what would be cool? I mean, what if I sold these little magnets?
Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, when you don't know anything about magnets or anything about burner, but you go online and you can figure out pretty easily, okay, well, I can get these magnets for X amount for 30 cents. I mean, I think I'm pretty good if I sold each one for $5, and then,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, or with shows traveling, you can figure all that out on a napkin, and it doesn't have to be like
Yeah,
crazy businesswoman, you're just a small business and you got it. You can do it. You can do it.
especially if it's like free stuff.
Yeah,
It took me 20 years to figure this out. Why 20? I don't know. I played whiskey jam. I'm like, I gotta get paid. I'm not getting paid after for some people, but I brought t-shirts and I was like, no one's gonna buy this. Nobody cares. You know what's $150.
yeah,
I'm like showing up and you're like, whoa, why?
Yeah.
I more fun about this, which is
Yeah.
time and energy and
yeah. Are there like specific avenues of education for that? Like other than, going to college for a business degree? Like, are there any courses you recommend or like in my mind, I'm going, okay, watch YouTube videos about how to run a small business. Like, are there any tools that exist for artists in that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, books, honestly.
Yeah.
I think books are, as far as return on investment, when I'm pulling up my phone, sorry, I'm gonna pull up my Audible. Um, so the books are, courses can be valuable, but they're so expensive, right? Like, um, so I'm just gonna look through here and see if some of these come to mind. The E-Myth is one. It's a great one about how to like just the nuts and bolts of like starting a business.
Yeah.
And so much of that actually transfers into music. Essentialism. I'm an audiobook guy because I have a long drive into our gym every day. Principles go, yeah, I like these books that are just um I I try to have a spiritual book and a business book going on at all times. Spiritual might like be more like family or something like that, but like I try to have like one of those going on, making me better at all times. And so that would be another, like you should just pour into 30 books this year
Yeah.
about how to start and run small businesses.
What's your relationship with expectations, Johnny?
In what way? Can you unpack that?
Um, career wise, music wise for your art, like I was encouraged when you said, I made this album that to me, I was really, really proud of it. And to me, it was kind of amazing that you were like, it didn't have the, overwhelming success of like radio or whatever the stats are, but you just
I
seemed
think I said it's terrible commercially. So
But like you said that almost with like joy and contentment. Like I think one of the things I've learned even on this retreat is the incredible amount of flexibility artists need to have with, this gig may not pay much, but I really connected with the people, or, I never really wanted to do this venue, but here we are. Or like for me, I'm not pursuing music, I'm pursuing comedy. So like it might look like emceeing an event, or it might look like a 1 hour comedy show, or a little boys bar mitzvah, like who knows. So like I think that I can be close-minded with what this should look like, and I think that's because I have a very close-minded expectation of what the road will look like ahead.
yeah,
If it's not XYZ, it's nothing,
sure. So I think the reason I can sit here with a smile and say my last album flopped and I love it, I'm proud of it, is because it's taken me a long time, but I'm not tied to that. My identity is not tied to it. That was not always the case as I was it's funny, like I had never looked at charts before, and all of a sudden I had songs on a chart, and I've become like, where's the new chart coming out? And so I have struggled with that. Absolutely. I don't want to sound like I haven't, but I am now at a place where like I just the success of my music or failure of my music does not define me or what God wants to do with it. I think uh there's so much talent in the Nashville area. Like just in my neighborhood, there are much better singers, songwriters, guitar players than I am. So the fact that I've been able to have some success at this and do it for a while is got to be the Lord, right? Like I'm not they're better than I am. Like it's got to be the Lord. And so like when it works, I have to be able to give that him that credit. And when it doesn't work, I also have to be able to give that to him as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's just that ultimately like releasing that identity that gets wrapped up in it
Yeah.
is really big. I have a joke that my GPS used to say, "You have arrived" when I got to a place, and I would drive to these like small town venues, and it would be like, "You have arrived." I'm like, "No, I have not."
Yeah.
And yet some of those were like the most impactful times, like whether it was just through great conversations I had or just like an unexpected crowd that was like an awesome crowd at this tiny little venue or something. Like it was so life-giving in a way that I didn't expect. And so I just have learned to like not put any expectations there on that. Um, I will say, so the thing I talk about with my wife is at this point, when I was starting out, it was say yes to everything. I'm going to learn. Now, I either need to have um, really good uh, one of three things needs to happen at everything that I leaving home is harder now. I have three kids at home. So every time I leave home, it either needs to be really good ministry, really good fun, or really good finances. The best is when you can get all three of those, right? Sometimes you get two of three, sometimes you get one of three. But if I have a string of shows where I don't get any of those three, that's when I need to step back and say, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. Like I'm taking the wrong kinds of shows, or I need to have a conversation with a booking agent or something like that. But if there's no money, no joy, and no ministry happening, I'm just like away from my kids for no good reason,
Yeah.
right? So those have been things that have kind of helped me.
Yeah.
Any other questions for John?
I think you're gonna turn on Netflix special and your joke's gonna be told.
Yeah, you haven't copyrighted that, right? Hey,
You
John,
can have it.
I'm doing my first Aspire conference in
Oh yeah?
oh yeah, so any advice on that would throw it my way.
Who
Other
are you on it with?
Jamie and which she's local to Nashville, I want to meet her. And then I forget, I think Melody someone.
Okay.
I'm honestly not even sure. But yeah, I'm so curious about that. I'm excited and hopeful. But
Yeah, Aspire's really, I have never actually been on one. But I do marriage date night, which is kind of like the brother-sister relationship to Aspire.
okay.
It's the couples version of Aspire.
Got it,
Um,
got it.
and Amberly, one of the comedians
Yeah.
on date night, does a lot of Aspires, and she just says it's so life-giving. So I'm excited for you on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was very, very helpful. And to me, it was like a kick in the pants of like, okay, I've got to start being more open-minded about my education as an artist and like my investment is shifting a little bit from like, okay, I'm not just gonna write all day long. I'm gonna try and like, I don't know, learn how to have a business meeting, learn how to make money off merch, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I feel like you pointed me in a good direction.
Good. I'm so glad to hear it. Hopefully it was a loving kick in the pants, but
Yes, absolutely.
But Johnny, that's one of the things, one of the many things I love about you. One of them is you have a great ability to have some hard conversations in a gracious way, or to say something in a way that man, it needs to be said, but it can be received well because
Yeah.
of how you approach it. So you definitely brought that today, buddy. And you know, I think just working with a lot more artists these days, having a left brain artist is a unicorn among unicorns, but one that can help out so many of the other unicorns to kind of say, hey, let's get a game plan Let's find some ways to build a business and then make it easy as possible for you to at least make it. And, I think, just conversations like this, Johnny, I think are so helpful for the arts community, especially in our city that we love, to be able to kind of get bigger visions that will lead to them not falling apart because their dream fell apart. And I think you've done such a beautiful job of building a life with music that you can still have that outlet. You've got a beautiful life. You've got a beautiful family. And I'm thankful for your friendship, bro.
Thank you guys. Yeah, it was good talking to you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you
Great
so
thoughts,
much.
bro. Thank you.
See you.
Absolutely.
You're out.
Thank you guys. Bye.